Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over our next winter storm for portions of the northern United States. This is basically anywhere from the Rockies and the northern plains eastward that's going to be impacted with some sort of ice or snow or maybe just rain with the system. There's still a lot of questions with this event and a lot could still change with the forecast. So there is definitely a lot of things that could change, including the rain snow line. Where does that heaviest snow set up? Is there going to be ice? And where does the ice set up? And how fast does that cold air come in? There's still so many different things that have to be figured out because this is still about 4 to 6 days out. So this is definitely in no ways a forecast. This is just me talking about the models, talking about what could happen with this event, because there is definitely a lot of potential with this event, and definitely we want to pay attention to this. So I'm in no way forecasting this event. I'm just showing you guys the models and showing you guys what could happen with this event. So without further ado, let's get right into it, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page, and you can tell it's definitely active on both sides of the United States. We have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings in the purple and pink for portions of California, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, with some red flag warnings in effect for Southern California and Southern Texas. We have some wind advisories for portions of California and Oregon, as well as much of the southeastern United States, and then up through the East Coast, where you actually have some high wind warnings along the coast, and then we have some high wind watches up for eastern Maine. We also see some more winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings. The winter weather advisories are in the purple, and the winter storm warnings would be in that pink, and that's where you could see a little bit more snowfall. Now, we're also dealing with some winter storm watches for western upstate New York, as well as some flood watches in between those wind advisories and those winter weather advisories. We also see some wind chill advisories for portions of Minnesota, Iowa, and the Dakotas, where some wind chills could get closer to -40 in portions of northeastern North Dakota. And then we see some hard freeze watches, some freeze warnings, and I believe those are just regular freeze watches in effect for portions of northern Florida and southeastern Georgia there. And other than that, there's not a lot else going on. So that is all driven by that system that's currently moving through much of the northeastern and Great Lakes part of the United States. So here's what the current GFS model run is showing. Then we'll look at the European, and then we'll look at the Canadian model and just talk about what they're showing for this event. We start off with a low pressure out near California and Nevada, and that starts to head a little bit further east, and it actually starts to move a little bit further to the north. Now what we have setting up here is a cold high pressure system that's dragging in some colder air into the eastern United States. So we have a cold setup already in place. We have this low pressure going into an already cold environment out through the plains, so you will definitely have some snowfall somewhere along the system. And as we play this through, you start to see that the system really develops. This would be by early on Tuesday morning, December 29th. So this is not that far away. This is only 5 days away. So I'm only speculating on what could happen. I think probably by Sunday night we'll have a really good idea, or a decent idea of exactly what may happen. And then by probably by Monday we'll have a very good idea of what could happen with this event. We see ice and sleet setting up, according to this model, over Kansas and Missouri, and that's all going to depend on where does that 32-degree line set up, and also is there any warm air still left up in the upper parts of the atmosphere, because if we don't have any of that warm air, then you're not going to see any freezing rain. If we do have some of that warm air in the upper parts of the atmosphere, you might see a little bit of icing issues. Now, here would be by Tuesday evening, and we're dealing with this low pressure strengthening over Kansas and then moving into portions of Missouri there, where you're dealing with a big band of snowfall over the northern plains. And this is somewhat of the same area that's getting impacted with Winter Storm Harold just yesterday with those blizzard conditions. So some of those areas are getting some additional snowfall added on if this were to be the case. We're also dealing with another line of storms, kind of like what we saw with Winter Storm Harold, moving through portions of the central United States, and that'll move further and further to the east as the system moves further to the east. As we continue this forward, you start to see more of that snow moves into the Great Lakes, and then it starts to pull ahead further to the north. But what we're also going to see is a wedge of cold air. What's happening is that we have this cold air moving on onto that northern side of the storm, but also with the Appalachian Mountains, we're dealing with some of that cold air wedging down the east side of the Appalachians. So that can usually actually lead to some icing issues, and that really is an issue with some of these storms, where sometimes you see a big ice event, for example, for these areas, just because of the wedging effect that the Appalachian Mountains do have on that area. So this would be by early on Thursday. We're dealing with that system moving out and moving further to the north, and then the GFS wants to bring that rain snow line very far to the north into New Hampshire, Vermont, and upstate New York, and even into Maine there, where that heavy freezing rain is now in northern Maine. So we'll still have to see how that plays out, and that's all going to depend again on exactly where that storm tracks out. And also, I think a reason that's happening is because we have a very warm southerly wind, and usually you want some sort of a westerly or a northerly wind in order to see snow. So that 32-degree line is being pushed all the way up into northern Maine. So definitely there are still again a lot of things that we do have to figure out with this event. We see that line of moisture really move out of here as we get to Friday, and now the only areas getting impacted are Maine and then into southeastern Canada. So here's what the European model is showing. We see that system out over portions of the southwestern United States, and that's going to become our storm. So let's see how this one develops. We see some of that snow and rain start to head a little bit further north into the central Rockies, and then you start to see the European model want to bring that rain snow line a lot further to the south. For example, the GFS model had that rain snow line actually over most of Kansas with that ice. But what the European model is showing is that that rain snow line and that ice transition line is more set up right around here, and we're dealing with snow further and further to the south. So as we play this through, you start to see that again we see intensifying ice precipitation, but it's really more of a rain snow event, not too much ice in the middle as we get to Tuesday. And then you start to see that system heading further to the north, heavier snow over Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa by this point. And then you start to see again that rain snow line gradually heading further to the north. You see some ice along that rain snow transition line, and then you start to see again that snow just sit over the same area over the northern plains for a good 24 to 48 hours. If this were to be the case, we're already into Thursday, so that snow started Tuesday night. We're into Thursday early in the afternoon by this point, and the snow is still not done according to this model. And then we see that arm of moisture from that low pressure, which is up in southern Ontario by this point, pull away and move into portions of the northeast on that western edge. As we're getting this very cold air mass to move through, we see some snowfall if this were to be the case. So again, this is a very dynamic forecast. There's a lot that can still change, and all I'm doing in this video is showing you the models, showing you what could happen, and dissecting what the models are showing. So this would already be by the 1st of January, and as we continue forward, you start to see that arm of moisture pulls away into New England, and the only issues are some lingering rain or snow showers, and then you see our next system over portions of the south central United States. Now here's that Canadian model for what it's showing with this event, and we're dealing with again those scattered rain or snow showers through portions of the Rockies and into the southwest. And as we continue this forward, you start to see that a low pressure starts to develop over the Four Corners, and that really just stalls out, and it's a little bit further south, kind of like what the European model was showing. And you see that rain snow line setting up more to the south, and I'll draw in pink what the GFS had roughly, and that rain snow line was further to the north, kind of like this. So you can definitely see how the European and the Canadian are seeing that rain snow line a little bit further to the south than what other models like the GFS model might be indicating. And as we continue this forward, you start to see that heavy snow moves into Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and we're starting to see some more of that ice into northern Missouri with some heavier snow over Kansas, northwestern Missouri, and into southern Iowa. Here would be by Wednesday morning, and we're looking at, according to the Canadian model, snow over the northern plains and the western Great Lakes. And then that system continues to head further to the east. We see that snow also move further to the east. We would also probably see a small line of thunderstorms with this, as you kind of see that inverted trough shape with the isobars. So you might see a sharp line of thunderstorms move through right around here with this system. So definitely pay attention for that as we get closer to the time. Maybe you you could to the time of the system, you might get a little bit of thunderstorm activity along that area. And as we continue this forward, you start to see that by Thursday morning, we're dealing with more of a wedge of cold air into the eastern United States, and you're starting to see the first signs of ice. And that's kind of what happens with the Appalachians a lot of the time. You actually see most of that cold air wedge on either side of the Appalachians, where to the west of the system, you of course have that cold air, and then also to the east of there, as you get east of the Appalachians, you also see some of that cold air. So what the Canadian model does is bring in a lot more ice for those areas along and east of the Appalachians, with more of that rain further west of there. And you do see some sort of ice event for portions of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. We'll still have to see about how valid that is. You start to see that line of moisture move through the Northeast with some heavier snow potentially on that northern side, according to the Canadian model. Although the Canadian model does like to overdo things, it really doesn't do too well with these longer-term outlooks. I think it's a fairly decent model in the shorter term, but definitely not in the medium to long range. It's not very good of a model because it does like to overestimate some of these snowfall totals at times. So here's what the European model is showing, and this is a little bit misleading, mainly because the European model is still taking into account whatever is going to happen with Harold, and also what is also happening with Harold up in the northern plains. So some of this is additional snowfall, but generally you're looking at maybe a foot of snowfall if the European model were to be correct here. And then if we look at what the GFS model was showing, and this doesn't really take into account whatever is happening with Harold right now, or what did happen. So this is pretty much all from this new system, and we're dealing with maybe closer to 20 inches if the GFS is correct. Again, those amounts are probably overblown. You probably want to take these in half, or maybe cut them to a third of what you're seeing on this map right now, because these longer term estimates can be quite misleading. So definitely I would cut these amounts in half, or maybe even take a third of what these amounts are and kind of take that as a good estimate, because these models again do like to overestimate quite a bit. And then here's what the Canadian model shows, and you see that rain snow line again further to the south, and you see a general 6 to 10 inches of snowfall if this were to be correct from the Canadian model. So definitely you can see how there are so many changes that still could happen. And again, this is in no way a forecast. This is just me talking about what could happen within the models, giving you a heads up on next week's storm, and definitely just to get you somewhat prepared. Just keep your eye on it. No need to panic right now, but as we get closer to this event, if it is still in the models, I will definitely be uploading on it a little bit more, and I'll definitely be making my snowfall forecast if this event were to happen. Probably early next week, I'll have a snowfall forecast out on this if this were to actually occur. Now, also tomorrow's video is going to be a longer range video, so we're not going to be talking about this storm. We're just going to be talking about the general pattern. And tomorrow's video will probably be coming out early in the morning, so probably right around 8 or 9 in the morning Eastern time. So definitely I will be uploading still, even though it is Christmas, but it's probably going to be a scheduled upload that I'm not going to actually be recording right on Christmas morning. I'll probably record later today and then upload it on Christmas, just so that you guys have a video, but also so that I could still spend time with my family on Christmas. So again, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.